back to Board Game Breakdown, everyone. I am Kristofer Solomon here with another video, and today we are going to be looking at the abstract nature theme game, Harmonies. So, as always, if you are trying to find a shorter video, just 2 or 3 minutes to see what this game is all about, and try to see if you might want to pick it up at your local game store, then please click this link here. For our burst version, it will just give you a really high overview of the game, but if you are looking for a how to play full-length video, then stay right here because that's what this video is all about. So you'll see as we progress forward that this game you'll be grabbing tiles such as these and placing them on your personal board, making patterns, stacking them in certain ways depending on what the rules say. And you'll also be trying to grab these awesome animal cards and trying to make the patterns on there to get some additional points before the end of the game. So if you like abstract games, especially ones that are 20-25 minutes you can knock out, I definitely think you would enjoy Harmonies. So continue watching, and you can use the chapters down there if you want to skip to a certain spot in the video. But before we get started on that, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube videos here at Board Game Breakdown, as well as going to see the website at boardgamebreakdown.com, where we have text reviews and links to all of our other videos. So without further ado, let's get started with Harmonies. All right, welcome to the setup portion for the Harmonies game, and we are going to be setting this up for 2 to 4 players. If you're interested in knowing about the solo, you can skip to the last chapter, and I'll do a quick setup and talk on how that mode works. But for right now, we're going to look at how to play the multiplayer. So a couple things I've put out here. You have your player board, and these are two-sided, so you and your other players need to decide which side to use. Everyone does have to use the same side. The only real difference is the layout and then how the blue water tokens score at the end of the game, which we'll go over a little bit later. So we're going to play on this side. This is the one that they recommend for starting players. So everyone who's playing is going to get one of these. I've just put out the one, but if you had an opponent or 3 or 4 players, you would grab boards and give them to them. And then you also have this board here, which you will see is also double-sided. If you're playing solo, you'll use the side with 3 circles. Any other time, you're going to use these 5 circled side. So we'll just put it out, and it's got this little arrow. You're going to use that to point to the first player because that will help you understand when the end of the game is triggered. So we'll just have it pointing to me at the moment. So a couple other things that you want to hand out. Important here is one of these player aids. Again, it's got a side for each player board. So you can see that one side's blue to match this. One side is kind of brown to match this. But I would give each player one of these. It's going to help detail how you can stack the different tokens. And we'll be using this to look at that shortly. You also have a stack of animal cards. They have this black background with like a brown animal paw on it. You'll want to take those and you'll want to shuffle them up. And then you're going to deal out 5 in the middle of the table for everyone to be able to reach. Go ahead and do that. And then the ones left over are going to be a draw pile. So we'll set that like that. There's one other stack of cards, these, that have a kind of tan background. They look very similar on this side, but these are nature spirit cards. We are not going to go over them in this video. They're a little more complex, and I think once you play it a few times, then you can grab those out, and it's very easy to put them into the game, and the instructions are well written on that, so you can look at that on your own. We have these little orange cubes here. You just need to put them in like a bank and place them where everyone can reach them. And do note that there are 4 just clear cubes here. Those would be used for the nature spirit cards, but as we are not using the nature spirit cards, we'll put those aside, but I just wanted to show you that so you don't mix them in with the oranges. I guess it wouldn't really matter if you use those as well, as long as you knew the difference. And then lastly, you're going to have your bag here that's filled with the landscape tokens. And so you put them in the bag, shuffle them up, and you'll randomly draw 3 tiles out and place them on each of these circles. So do that. And you'll see there's 6 different colors. We might get all of them out this one time. If not, we'll make sure to draw some on the next turn so you can see how they all work. Okay, there's that. I think we have at least 1 of each color. And then the bag of tokens just needs to go somewhere off to the side of the table so that you can use that to refill this as people are drawing them. So that is actually all there is to setup for the 2 to 4 player game. So next we'll jump into discussing how each of these tiles stack and what a turn is like. Alright, welcome back. We've set up the game in the previous chapter. Now we're going to concentrate on quickly looking at this card here and understanding how each type of token stacks out on your player board. When you place a token, there are not going to be any rules as far as where you can place it on here. You don't have to be touching other tiles that you've already laid down, anything like that. But there are going to be rules on how you can stack tokens, because some tokens are stackable and some are not. And then also there are going to be rules on how to get the most amount of points by chaining things together, and you'll see the little chain icon as opposed to leaving things alone. So we will start at the top of the card here, and we're going to look at the browns and green. So I'll just call these like forest or trees or something. So first thing to notice is browns by themselves are not going to get you any points at the end of the game. A single green is going to give you 1 point. A green on top of a brown will get you 3. A green on top of 2 browns will get you 7. You'll see that greens can't stack on anything else other than browns. So you cannot place greens on top of grays or reds or anything like that. So we'll grab a couple greens and browns and stuff out here. So if these were the 3 you chose, you could place them out here anywhere, but you might want to do something like this. 2 browns and a green on top so that you're getting 7 points there. Again, note that if you place a green down by itself, you cannot stack anything on top of that later on in the game. So at this point, if you put that by itself, then you are basically conceding that you're only going to score 1 point for that at the end of the game. It doesn't matter how the greens are touching each other as far as left or right. It only matters how tall the greens are. If you set something up like this with 2 browns and the end of the game came and you never put a green on top, again, that would be 0 points. All right. So let's move over to the next, which is the gray and mountains. So there's this icon I mentioned that was chaining. What that means is a gray stack that is by itself, it is not next to any other gray stacks, is going to get you 0 points. So think of it as like a mountain range. You want them to be chained together. As long as at least 2 mountain ranges or stacks are touching, then a single gray is going to get you a point, 2 grays is going to get you 3 points, 3 grays are going to get you 7 points. Now you'll see when we get down to the reds can stack on top of a single gray. So what does that mean? If you have a gray out here, such as that, and the game ends, you would only get a single point for that as long as there was another gray touching. But as you're progressing through the game, you might want to put a red on top of that gray in order to activate this red and score things on that. So that's something to look out for. But as far as the grays go, again, you can stack them on top of each other. But even if you had 3, which is the maximum, if that is not touching any other gray tokens, that's going to get you 0 points at the end of the game. So you want to make sure that your grays are at least linked together like that. In this case, this would get you a point and this would get you 3 points, so a total of 4 points at the end of the game. All right, moving to the yellow, I guess, fields. It's similar to the grays in that any single yellow by itself is not going to get you any points, but every group of yellows that are chained together are going to get you 5. So you can't stack anything on top of yellows. Yellows can't stack on top of anything else, so they are by themselves. But if I had, let's say, 3 yellows, and at the end of the game they were all separate, they were not touching, you would get 0 points for all of those yellows, because you have to have them chained together. Now if you had something like that, this would get you 0 points, but this would be called a grouping, and that would get you 5 points for that grouping. Let me grab another yellow. If I had at the end of the game something like this, then you would get 5 points for this, 5 points for this, because this is a separate grouping together, and that would get you 2 groupings. And then lastly, let's just look at if for some reason you had kind of chained these all together like this, that is now only 1 grouping, so that's only going to get you 5 points. So it's best to kind of spread the yellows around into their own groupings, as long as they're not by themselves. Okay, so moving on to reds, which are going to be cities or towns. The first thing to note is that over here, it lets you know that reds can only stack on grays, browns, or other reds. Okay, so that's important to note, so you can't have a yellow out there and then put a red on top of it. It's not going to work. A red can stack on another red, can also stack on a brown, stack on a gray. All right. If a red is by itself and not stacked, it's going to get you 0 points at the end of the game. The other thing that you want to look at is notified by these 2 drawings here, is that you need to have 3 different colors surrounding a red in order to score 5 points. If you have 2 or less, you're going to get 0 points. So what does that look like? So let's say we have our stacked red, it's on a brown, that's good. And you have this, this, and this. At the end of the game, this is going to get you 0 points because you only have 1, 2 different colors surrounding it. This counts as the same color because they're both mountains. Instead, you would want something like this. You know, you could have another gray, you could have a red. You know, if it looks like that, then you can count the amount of colors around it, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors. So this stack right here would get you 5. So that's the important part on the cities. And lastly, for this side, we mentioned in the setup that the water, the blue, is going to score differently depending on which side, either this side or this side. So on the gray side here, or the brown side, it's pretty easy to see. you're going to want to chain like a river, and your longest set of blues is going to score whatever amount of points you see down here. So you would want your blues, you know, to snake around, something like that. So that would get you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would get you 8 points because it's 4. Now, if you had another line up here that was 3, you don't score for both of them. You just score your longest one. So you would score this 4. Now, if you had something like this, you don't get to do like, you know, all the way around. It's the shortest run. So this would be 3, because it'd be 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Any of those would kind of make that just a run of 3. So you would like your rivers to be something more like that to get the maximum amount of points out of 5 tokens as opposed to what it was before. Now if we flip this card, the rest of these are the same, so we're not going to run through those again. But let's just look at the river tiles again. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of be trying to make islands. And so you see that the red or the blue tiles separated these into 1, 2, 3, 4 different sections, and you basically get 5 points per section. So on this side, you know, if you did something like that at the end of the game, you would say I have 1 section here, 1 section here, and then this is a section. So you'd have 3 times 5, 15 points. So you're going to want to kind of be making little islands on the board to get the maximum amount of points there. All right, so that is the explanation on how each of these types of tiles stacks and works. So we will reset the camera here so you can see all the cards. And what we'll do is we'll go through and show you how a couple turns work so you can see how the game plays. All right, welcome back. So in the last chapter, we looked at how the different tiles stack on top of each other according to this player aid over here. So now let's look at how an actual turn works. So there's 2 parts of a turn. The first part, well, you can do them in any order, but there's one part that's mandatory and one part that's optional. All right, so the mandatory part is choosing one pile over here, so 3 tokens, and placing them on your board. Okay, so we'll kind of talk about during the second part here how you might choose to pick up the tokens, but let's just grab 3 and lay them out there. So if I grab these 3, got to put them out there. Remember, these are the only rules you have to follow. So if for some reason you wanted to do something like this, you could do that. You don't have to like start connecting them right away. You can place them like that. So, you know, I like my mountains to be stacked and touching. So, you know, maybe I go and stack these 2. Maybe I place that there. However you want to put it, you're going to put your 3 down, and that can be the end of your turn if you would like. The optional part is taking one of the animal cards is your first option, and then the second optional part is placing an animal cube. So what does that look like? So I'm going to take this animal card, and the reason why I'm going to take it is down here you see a pattern that's created, and you want to take animal cards that you will be able to complete that pattern however many times there are squares over there. Okay, so you can see on my board that I already started to make this pattern. And so I want to grab this card because if I take it, then no one else can have it. There are 4 paw prints up here. And so you are allowed to have 4 cards at a time. So I'll place that down. You need to go ahead and pick up your cubes and cover up however many squares are on the card. Okay. The third thing, optionally, is placing a cube from the card out here on the board. I can't do that yet because I have not made this pattern. Okay, so that option at this point is null. So I would say, hey, my turn's over, because I can only take one card per turn. Even though you can have 4 cards, you can't grab up a bunch of cards. So at the end of your turn, you replace the card, and then you take 3 new tiles randomly from the bag and place them back on the board, and then it's the next player's turn. So that would go round and round. So let's pretend that it's my turn again, and I am going to grab these 3. So I'm going to go and put this yellow one down here because it made that exact pattern. 2 stacked grays, and then a single yellow and a single yellow. And then I have these other 2 I need to place. So let's see. We'll place this here, and I'll show you why in a second. And we will just throw this green. I don't really want it in my way, so let's just put it there. Now remember, I can grab a card if I want to, and I'm going to go ahead and take this card to be my second one. So I'm going to fill that up. And then I can place an animal cube. So at this point, I have created this same pattern. Again, it's double mountains, a yellow and a yellow. So I'm going to take the cube from the bottom of the card, and I'm going to place it on the yellow there that has the cube from the card. So I'm going to just bring the card up closer again so you can see it. So you'll see that has the cube on it. So down here, I've placed the cube on the yellow that matches. So if the game were to end right now, for this card, I would score 5 points. Obviously, I want to try to make this again, because if I do it again, then I pull this off and I get 12 points. The thing is, now that this has a token on it, that can never have another cube placed on it. So if I were to make this pattern again, I could do a yellow here and a yellow here, and then place the cube on this yellow, and I would have made it twice. So I can reuse these tiles, but I can't ever place a cube back on that yellow. Okay, so you might be wondering, why did you grab this card? Well, you'll see that I've already started making that pattern, a red, a yellow, a yellow. All I'm going to need to do is eventually stack a red here, and then I can place this on the red, because the token here is on that red stack. Now, unlike this pattern, because this red is no longer able to take tokens, it's a little harder to recreate that pattern again. You know, I could put a yellow here and then another red stack and put a cube there, but it's going to be a little trickier to make that. But all that to say is, you're allowed to have these 4 cards and you're working on them as you're picking up the stacks and placing them. So let's see, I'm going to grab some yellows out of here. Just because I want to show you what happens if you complete a card. So remember my turn, it was mandatory. I had to take a batch of 3. I then optionally took an animal card, and I optionally put a cube out. Well, we're going to put this one back because I didn't. As I throw that off the table, I didn't actually grab that. So if it came back around to me and say, okay, great, I need 2 yellows, right? I'm going to grab this stack. I'm going to make a yellow. I'm going to make a yellow. So again, look, I have the same pattern that's on here. I can take this cube and place it there. Now, when I've emptied a card out, this is just going to go to the side because I'm going to score points for that at the end of the game, but it opens me up another spot. So maybe if I had 4 cards I was working on, once this one's done, I have another spot for an open card. Because remember, you can only have 4 at a time. And then I still have this gray, and because I want to score points for the mountains, remember they don't like to be alone, you know, maybe I'll put that gray there. So you're really going to be placing your cards or your tiles down depending on what kind of cards are out there and what you feel like you can do. You definitely don't want 4 cards and only have made each card one time. The points at the bottom of each card are pretty low, so you want to be trying to make shapes and patterns that you can repeat over and over again to get the most points. So you're going to continue to do this until one thing happens. If a player fills up their board and at the end of their turn they only have 2 empty spaces or less, that triggers the end of the game. If at that point, if it was, say, the first player, because remember you're going to point this to the first player, everyone else gets an extra turn to make sure that everyone gets the same amount of turns. But it could be that the last player in the circle triggers the end of the game. Right then, everyone has the same amount of turns and the game's over. So you do have to be watching that as your board is filling up, that the game can be triggered pretty quickly, and you'll have cards that you did not fulfill. Now, don't worry, there are no negative points for not fulfilling the cards. You're just going to have kind of wasted turns for working on a card that you never got towards. For the in-game scoring, you're going to do a combination of this card, and so you'll go down and, like we talked about in the last chapter, score your points for each of the colors and how they are laid out on your board, and then you're going to take all of your completed cards and add up that highest victory points, and then any cards currently out here, let's pretend we made this twice, you'll take the top most uncovered points and you'll add those up. So all that added together gets you a final tally, and the person with the highest score wins. So it's pretty quick, fun game, abstract game if you like that kind of thing, with some really fun artwork. So if you want to skip to the next chapter, I'll quickly touch on what the solo mode looks like. If not, I appreciate you watching. Make sure to go to the website and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos. All right, welcome back. If you stuck around after the last chapter to quickly see how the solo mode works, you might notice already a few differences in the setup. So basically this main board with the tokens, you're going to flip over and place it on the side with this 3 circles, and then you're only going to have 3 animal cards out as opposed to 5 like we did in the multiplayer game. The rest of the setup is basically the same. So we're going to go ahead and fill up our circles here with 3 tokens apiece. Okay, and the way the turn works is going to be basically identical to the multiplayer. You're still going to have your mandatory part, which is to take 1 stack of 3 tokens, place them on your board. So we'll do that first. So let's just say I want to grab this and put that there, something like that. Okay, so then you also have your optional piece. So remember, you could take a card. So say I want to take that one, place this out here. If I had a pattern made for the cubes, then I could do that. But I'm not doing that optional piece, so that would be the end of my turn. So what happens is these 6 unused tokens actually do not go back in the bag. They just go back in the box. And then you place a new card out here like normal, so you only have 3. So why does that really matter? Well, there's only a select amount of each token, and I'll show you that it's printed on the player aid card right over here. So let me finish this. So if you'll look here on this left corner, so there's like 21 browns and 19 greens. There's 23 grays, so on and so forth. So the fact that you have the 6 that you're not choosing are not going back into the bag. You know right then that you have less of whatever color you did not choose in the future rounds. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. We do our mandatory. Again, you don't have to do the mandatory one first. You could take a card first, but all I'm saying is you do have to take a stack. So let's put this out here. We'll just do it like that. And then optionally, I can take a card. Maybe there's no cards I want to take. So I'm going to skip that, and I haven't built this pattern, so I'm going to skip that option. So you would, again, get rid of these 6, refill this, but because I did not take an animal card, I do have the option to scrap an animal card. So let's say I'm never going to like make this pattern. It's just, I'm not interested in this. You can discard it and refill the animal card like that. Now you can only do that if you did not take an animal card that turn. So that's just a way for, you know, if you had 3 cards out there that are pretty tough, you're not just stuck with those cards all game. The rest of the game plays exactly the same as multiplayer. You play until you have 2 or less spots left, and then that's the end of the game. Again, you tally up your points based off of this and whatever cards you've completed or partially completed, and you basically just trying to get your highest score. There is no sort of AI player that you're going against or anything like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully that is helpful, and that will let you kind of see how Harmonies works and if it might be a game for you. Please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and go to our website at boardgamebreakdown.com to see other videos and text articles and reviews and things like that. Thanks again.